Hey guys, my name is Mark, and in this video I want to take a look at the Pentacon 50mm f1.8. The lens for me that started it all. The Pentacon 50mm is one of the most affordable vintage lenses that you can get. It's also one of the most widely available. Millions were made and sold as the standard prime lens on the Pentacon 35mm film cameras. This one in particular is a direct descendant of the Meyer Optik Gorlitz Oriston 50mm f1.8. And it's not hard to see the physical similarities between the two lenses. Now, I'm just stating that as a matter of fact. None of this really matters for me when it comes to this lens. This one is special. It was my grandfather's and the first vintage lens that I ever adapted to my camera. It was this little lens that showed me the potential of using vintage lenses. It got me out shooting way more, completely up to my videography game, and is the main reason that I have this channel now. To say that it inspired me is a bit of an understatement. It's nowhere near my best vintage lens, and I don't care. It's got that emotional, sentimental connection, and for me, that's the core driving force in this art form. Now, emotional bias aside, and to be perfectly honest, it's not the sharpest lens I own. It doesn't have the best colors, doesn't have the nicest looking bokeh, or most elegant ergonomics, but it does have one unique feature that helps it stand out from the rest. A minimum focusing distance of just less than 0.33 meters, which is a big deal. Now, minimum focusing distance is simply the closest you can get to your subject before it goes out of focus, and it really adds to the versatility of the lens. Both my Contax Zeiss and Takumar 50s can't get this close at 0.45 meters. Now, obviously there's more important things to consider when assessing a vintage camera lens: the maximum aperture, the focal length, and of course, the price. But if you're looking for versatility, being able to narrow the gap between you and your subject can provide an interesting perspective. Just something to think about with this lens. This Pentacon 50mm has an all-metal build, which feels pretty nice and is actually quite light. The focusing is precise with a total focus throw of 320 degrees, which is huge. This does give you a lot of focus control, so I kind of dig it. Now, I mentioned earlier this lens isn't particularly sharp. Wide open at f1.8, the image is pretty muddy in the corners. And the natural contrast is pretty low. It's got kind of this dreamy vibe across most of the frame. You don't even have to look too hard to find it. There it is. Now, I sometimes wonder if these softer images wide open was in fact intentional. Now, when I was researching the Contax Zeiss history, I did come across some mention that Leica, Zeiss, and some other lens designs would do this intentionally so that when shooting wide open, the image would produce softer skin tones, adding a bit of a glow. Now, I can't say for sure if this was built into the actual lens design or not, but I thought it was an interesting little bit of information. Anyways, if you don't like it, you'll be happy to know that the optical performance of the lens gets much better across the frame, stopping down. Chromatic aberrations are definitely present in high contrast situations. And this variant doesn't have any multi-coating, and flares pretty harsh. In some situations, the bokeh can be very busy, and in certain shooting conditions, it can even swirl a bit. Overall, depending on the shot, I do think it can render some pretty nice images. You can't really deny that insane background separation though, at minimums. There are definitely better vintage 50mm lenses available to experiment with. This lens isn't for everybody, though given how it's turned out for me, I think it's a pretty great lens that costs very little and can really open the doors to the possibilities of shooting with vintage prime lenses. I mean, without it, I might have missed out on all of this. So with that said, what inspires you most about photography? Would love to hear what you guys think. Thanks so much for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys next time.